What's the most rural location in America? Super excited to get into this. Before we do, appreciate if you guys can subscribe button. Let's see what we got.
America is an expansive country with such a diverse set of locations and geography. Something we've been blessed with due to our later settlement as a country is a few areas in the country that are still entirely rural.
You know what? Just this small part of America right here. I know for a fact this will be a small part of America. It's probably the same size as my city that I was born in. Nottingham.
Rural. Looking across the lower 48, it's not a dense mapping of large cities,
right?
But instead a ton of farmland and rural areas that surround the cities.
Okay.
Rural regions are always something I found very interesting.
Bro, I honestly, beautiful, man. This does remind me a little bit of like Norway in Europe, right? And I absolutely love it. This is what I'm saying. Like, America literally has everything.
The dynamic is entirely different from city life. Wow. So thinking about where these rural areas are and what life is like there is a question that can be fun to answer.
Right.
So today we're going to look across the country for the most remote and rural regions and talk about why they're so rural and what life is like.
Let's see.
Before this video starts, though, please consider subscribing to the channel. We're so close to my lifelong...
Hey, his name will be in the description below. And do you guys reckon Area 51 is going to be here?
Goal of 100,000 subscribers. So if you enjoy geography content like this, please consider simply subscribing because it would help me out a ton. Thank you very much. So let's start by getting a few things out of the way. The most rural place in the U.S. is definitely in Alaska.
Okay.
The state is filled with so many areas of complete and total wilderness with no...
Is the water really that blue, or is this an edited photo? Is it actually that blue?
Nobody around you for possibly hundreds of miles. There are some insane look...
Oh my god, it's just stunning, man. Yo, I got lied to though before. Because like apparently the UK was seeing northern lights, and I think it was more like the north of the UK. But like, yeah, I went outside when everyone was like, "Oh yeah, you should be able to see the northern lights tonight." Didn't see anything. The only thing I seen was like the street lights. That was it.
Here. But like I say a lot on this channel, that is totally boring. If you wanted to know the most rural place in Alaska, it would probably be around here, where there are 0 people in this region.
Mad.
But let's move to the lower 48.
Mad. I know for a fact this is probably the size of the UK. Actually, I don't know. How zoomed in are we? But Alaska's massive. Alaska's absolutely huge. I think it's like 10 times bigger than the UK. I don't know. 8, something like that.
Around here, where there are 0 people in this region. But let's move to the lower 48, where we might find a more interesting and relevant answer.
Okay.
So looking at our beautiful 48 states and talking about rural areas, obviously the first place you'd think of is the western U.S. The difference in population density between areas east and west of the Mississippi is pretty stark. But actually, there are just a few very rural and remote regions in the east as well. In fact, a couple of them are even in the original 13 colonies. The first of these would be northern Maine. Northern Maine, and specifically northwestern Maine, is probably the best example of an extremely remote area.
That's interesting because state-wise, like Maine is pretty small to the others.
Eastern U.S. Looking at the regions north and west of Millinocket, there is basically nothing. This region has no incorporated cities or paved roads, being mostly dominated by mountainous wilderness and lakes. A lot of it is owned by the timber industry, with a good chunk of the land being owned by various companies, which has actually had a pretty big effect on the overall landscape over the course of history. The region's home to Baxter State Park, which holds the beginning of the Appalachian Trail, and Mount Katahdin, the highest peak in Maine.
Okay,
this park is a good representation of the region, being founded for the sake of preserving the wilderness.
Man, America's just so beautiful, bro. It really is. Like, I've seen so many different parts of America now, and it's just how different it is and stunning the places are. I'm so jealous.
And I think that needs to be remembered because as you've seen with some of these images, Northwest Maine holds some of the most rugged terrain in this part of the U.S.
Right.
So that's why the population is so low. In this square, the population is just 750, which I think is pretty insane. More very rural areas can be found in the Adirondack Mountains of northern New York. This area does hold plenty of tourism, being home to the Olympics as recently as 1980.
Do you know what? I always forget, and a lot of you guys do live in like northern New York. Northern New York, that sounds so weird. But you call it upstate New York, right? Upstate New York, not northern New York. But you know what I'm saying? And like, I do forget that there's more to New York than New York City, right? Because as a Brit, when we hear about New York, it's only New York City. And New York, upstate New York is absolutely beautiful, man. Like, this is beautiful.
But specifically focused on the southwest quadrant of the mountains, the Five Ponds and Pigeon Lake wilderness, as well as the Black River and Ferris Lake wild forests, are home to really remote areas. Now, sure, there's more population here since state highways 28 and 8 run through the region and are home to some development.
Okay.
So the highlighted area is home to 3,500 people. But between those small valleys with villages like Old Forge and Eagle Bay, it is totally undeveloped.
Wow.
But to end out areas that are technically east of the Mississippi, if you go by the Mississippi River's most westerly point, there's the boundary waters of northern Minnesota. This area, known for its amazing canoeing, is pretty much totally empty. So, putting it pretty simply, this area is defined by former glaciation. Basically, if you didn't know, this area was covered by glaciers during the last ice age.
Oh,
so
really?
When they melted away, it left thousands of tiny lakes absolutely everywhere.
Oh.
And thus, the boundary waters were born.
Oh, that's actually mad. Damn, there is a lot of water, isn't there? Yo.
It's just a forest and water. So
That's
in this
crazy.
highlighted region, there's a population of just 400 people. But there are some regions even emptier than others.
Hey, how did the 400 people get around? Did they all travel on boats? Like drive-through boats? Like, I'm guessing they got a McDonald's, right? I heard there's a McDonald's every inch, every corner of America, dude, right? So how did they get to McDonald's? They go on the canoes and just drive through canoes?
To the northwest of this is also Voyageurs National Park, which
Okay.
is a big, more touristy area. But it's still just beautiful wilderness, which is rural, obviously. So with that out of the way, finally we can move to the western U.S. where the magic happens.
Okay, the magic.
This region, which is much more mountainous and less fit for rural development, makes for some empty regions. Starting with the Great Plains, there are always still small towns, but the overall emptiest part is northwest South Dakota,
Okay.
above the Black Hills and west of the Missouri River. I'll give anybody $1 if they can genuinely name a city in this region, because geography
Plaintown City.
is basically my focus in life, and I had no idea. This area is not fit for basically any form of farming, so the focus is mostly on ranching.
Okay.
Now, though this isn't as remote as some other areas,
To be fair, I've all the you know how I say, like, I see these pictures over and over again. I'm not really a massive fan of, like, the flat plains. You know what I'm saying? Like, the UK is pretty flat. I'm used to it. The flat fields, the flat stuff, right? I like it when we get, like, the big, juicy mountains.
the difference in lifestyle is what stands out to me. There are native reservations for the Sioux tribe out here, which live in
what?
very different conditions. And
Okay.
it's something I think you really have to see to understand. This
Interesting.
also means a lot of these areas are very low income. And I thought an interesting example of how this is seen is this YMCA in Dupree, South Dakota, which looks nothing like what you'd imagine a YMCA to be like. The population of this quadrant of the state is 18,000.
Okay.
But going by lifestyle and overall feeling, it's extremely rural. Another good one in this region is
Mate, this looks rural. You show me this on a map, I'm going to tell you there's not many people living here.
West Texas and southeast New Mexico. This area is much smaller, but it's home to Loving County, the
Oh,
least
wait, I am seeing like a neighborhood or a little town here. Look at that.
populated county in the
It's
nation
decent size.
at just 64 people. This area has a population of just 1,000, and it's dominated by the oil industry, which pretty much single-handedly keeps it afloat.
Right.
But that also means a lot of these cities aren't totally impoverished, and they're pretty well off because of the oil industry, as well as a bit of cattle.
Okay.
Residents of Loving County have a per capita income of $32,000, so this entire area has a very different dynamic than some other rural regions. Getting into, finally, a couple of our most rural and remote regions in the country, Central Nevada obviously has to be mentioned. Specifically, this massive block in the
Wait, is this Central Nevada where Area 51 is? Like, we're going to have to talk about Area 51, surely.
middle of the state. Now, this is the peak of the Great Basin. It's just desert and mountains, which makes for not only a very interesting topography, but also a pretty terrible place to live, which is
Right.
reflected in the population. This massive 24,000 square mile chunk of land has a population of just 5,000, which is approximately 0.2 people per square mile.
Oh, wow.
There's no water resources here or areas for farming, and mining is just about the only industry here anymore.
Okay.
Taking the town of Austin, for example, it's survived off relatively low production of silver and gold with a population of just 167. And that's what...
Yo, imagine living in this rural town where only 100 people live. Like, it would be kind of cool how you know everyone, but then it's also got its cons as well. Like, first of all, how do you find partners? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? How do you find a girlfriend or boyfriend? You know what I mean? You're going to know everyone. You're literally going to... Wait, they're not what I think they could be, right? Nah. But listen, like, yo, if you see, like, oh, man, they're gonna have to travel out, aren't they?
A lot of these communities out here end up being. Looking at Austin's downtown, though, it's not like the area is entirely desolate or anything, with Austin staying afloat now off of tourism, which works pretty well for them. But none of these...
I suppose you could meet a nice tourist boy or, you know, man or girl or whatever. These
examples have been the real most rural place in the lower 48, though. And I do believe this one's pretty hard to argue whenever you watch a video like this on YouTube.
Right.
And it's this region of central Idaho in the Salmon Chalice National Forest. I've always found this area incredibly interesting. Mostly because almost nobody talks about it. I mean, the average person is imagining Nevada or maybe Utah when you ask them where the most rural area is.
Right.
But this part of Idaho is pretty much totally empty.
Beautiful.
This area of over 3,000 square miles has an estimated population of 37. And in actuality, that could be closer to 10.
What?
Which would put the population density...
Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? Where 27 people just gone?
At 0.003 residents per square mile.
Mad.
There's no cities, towns, communities, roads, or anything, and it's the best place in the lower 48 to visit if you want somewhere totally empty. This land along the Salmon River...
Hey, listen, I think I watched too many movies and documentaries, because I just heard him. I know he said it's the best place to visit if if you want some quiet time, but I just heard, avoid this place, you're going to go missing. It's the easiest place to go missing, man.
River is fascinating because there isn't even a high volume of tourism.
Beautiful.
You can go there and be completely isolated from anybody else, which I think is very interesting. There are so many other interesting rural
We
regions.
just don't have any places like that in the UK. Like, yeah, we got the countryside and we got places where we got mountains and that. But most of the time, someone else is there. Like, you're never in a big area by yourself, really, in the UK. Like, you're never, like, we're too, like, close together, too cramped.
In the U.S.
Don't know anything like this.
I think the many aspects of day-to-day life in these places are worth studying.
Right.
How do you survive without a city near you? And are the people here happy in their situations?
Interesting.
It's one of America's coolest and most interesting qualities.
It is interesting.
Thanks for watching.
Especially as someone from the UK where we're just the total opposite. It's very, very interesting to see. Even the places in the UK that are like not very close to a city, there's still many people living there because we're so cramped and it's still got, you know, loads of shops and stuff like that, right? This is really, really interesting for me to see. If you guys live or have ever lived in any rural locations, let me know in the comment section. If you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a thumbs up, subscribe for more content. I am doing a month-long subathon and it should be lasting throughout the whole of March. I'm pretty much going to be live streaming every single minute of every single day for a whole entire month. Loads of challenges, loads of reactions, all on my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/L3WG. Come over and say hi. And also, my final challenge goal on there is to book my American tickets with you guys live on stream. You guys can help me choose where I'm gonna go, help me plan out the tickets, plan out the trip. So make sure you do go check that out. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.